Welcome to our virtual town hall meeting. Modern Design and I are going to walk you through the elements of the building project and why we feel this building project is necessary for the Janesville Community Consolidated School District. Today, we're putting this video together for those of you that are unable to attend our actual town hall meetings on October 25th. The format of this virtual town hall meeting is going to be, I'm going to walk you through the project details, and Modern Design is going to walk through the actual design of the project. If you have more questions, if you're searching out more information, you can always check the Janesville website and Facebook page for more details pertaining to each slide. Our current facility concerns here at Janesville is we've really outgrown the space that we have. This building was designed as a single section building, a single section for kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and we no longer operate with that population. We have an early childhood, an elementary, and a gymnasium space that right now don't meet the needs of our current students. We have to consider how we're going to meet the demands of our growing population, because we anticipate that we are not quite done growing. Our early projections for next year already show that our enrollment is going to be up once again. Our elementary enrollment has grown significantly since our last project. About 10 years ago, a plan was put into place to refurbish and redo some of our building to meet the needs of those students. Since that project has been completed, our elementary has, or our school in general, has really grown. We are now serving over 360 students in grades K through 12, and we have another 60 students in our preschool program. Just 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. We were serving less than 270 students, and the space was designed for that population. Next year, we're already anticipating another jump. Our smallest class in our building are seniors, at 21 graduating seniors, and we know that we're going to have at least 30 new students come up through kindergarten next year. But that is really, really early in the projection stage. It seems like we get 5 or 6 kindergartners that register late in the spring that didn't go to preschool here or haven't received any preschool services. So please note that when I talk about projections for next year, it is pretty early in the ball game to pinpoint an exact number. Our projected class sizes for 2017 and 18, again, this is really early. We're going to have between 28 and 30 kindergartners, which is going to be 2 sections for us. We're going to have 41 first graders, 2 sections, 33 second graders, 2 sections, 36 third graders, which will be 2 sections, just 20 fourth graders, which is still going to be 1 section, and 32 fifth graders. In this scenario, we will need 11 classrooms, and we only have 10 classroom spaces in the elementary wing. One of those classroom spaces is currently being used for preschool, which really brings that number down to 9. So how can we build more space? Well, the last project was funded solely on local option sales tax money. The 1 cent paid for the last project. We no longer have the ability to use 1 cent money because we've borrowed against it through 2029. Our only real option for remodeling or adding on to our building is through a general obligation bond. A general obligation bond is 100% supported by the local taxpayer. The school board is asking for $2.70 per thousand, or about $5.395 million, to make the improvements that they and we feel necessary for our growing population. There are 3 components to this project, and Modern will talk about this in more detail here shortly. But there is an elementary classroom space project, a preschool classroom space project, and a high school gym locker space concern. The elementary classroom space addition would give us the ability to have 2 sections in the elementary at each grade. While we don't currently have 2 sections of every grade, next year we will only have 1 grade that will not have 2 sections. And we're anticipating, as we look at enrollment down the road, to be a 2-section elementary K-5. The proposal would add 2 to 3 new classrooms at the east end of the campus and we would be refurbishing 1 to 2 current elementary classrooms. We have some interior classrooms or some interior spaces that are being used for elementary classrooms right now that were designed as ICN rooms and kindergarten rooms that need to be updated just a little bit to fit in with the rest of the elementary. Preschool classroom spaces become very tight. When the preschool program started over 20 years ago, the preschool program had about 20 students. The room that they use is a large space. It's about 1,800 square feet, and it worked perfectly when we started. Today we have about 60 students in preschool. We've borrowed a room out of the elementary hallway, and we're really at capacity with what we can take on. In this proposal, we would create 2 new early childhood areas that would be down by Mrs. Mack's current room that would give us the space for our 3- and 4-year-old students. This would give us more capacity, and it would also make our preschool ADA compliant. Our preschool students right now are in an area of the building that is that you need to travel downstairs to get to or upstairs to get to lunch. The proposed project would tie into the current middle school hallway, allowing preschool students to get to art, to get to the gym, to get to the cafeteria without having to go up and down stairs. The high school gym space, or the high school component of this, is also a great need. We currently have 1 elementary multi-purpose room and 1 secondary gym. A third gym would allow us some adequate space for high school practices and competition, middle school practices and competition, and elementary practices and competition. Currently, our blue gym, our elementary multi-purpose room is composed of a sport court, a plastic floor. The ceilings are very low. There's no space for seating, and really the group that loses out the most are elementary students. Elementary students that have 3rd and 4th grade basketball or volleyball or whatever it might be have to schedule at odd times in order to gain access to that gym. Because our high school students and our middle school students are using both gyms for practices before and after school each day. The multi-purpose room creates challenges in that it cannot host a game. It cannot host a middle school basketball game. It cannot host an elementary game, at least comfortably, because there's only about 2 or 3 feet between the wall and the end line and sidelines, which makes seating impossible. So on nights that we have games, we can only use 1 gym. And again, this second space would allow us just more access to gym. The other issue with our current high school gym is that it was built several years ago and codes and times have changed. The end lines are only 4 feet from the walls and the bleachers, which really creates an unsafe environment for our kids. The high school gym is not air conditioned. If you've been to graduation, if you've been to any volleyball game this fall, you've noticed. I assure you, it's been warm and humid. The playing surface itself is smaller than the state of Iowa requires by several feet. The playing surface itself is fairly slick, and it's really just kind of right now it's a dangerous spot to participate in. A new gym, and Modern will talk about this in more detail later, would give us more seating capacity. It would give us more space between end lines, sidelines, and walls and bleachers. And again, it would provide us more access for our students. So a question that came up a lot in the last set of town hall meetings is something along the lines of, is Janesville going to be a relevant school district? Is Janesville going to be, aren't we going broke? Aren't we consolidating? Aren't we doing things that a lot of our neighboring small school districts are doing right now? And the answer is no. Janesville is one of the most financially healthy districts in the state. There are a couple things that I'll point to here that'll help show you why we are financially solvent. Our certified and served enrollments are up. That means the student body, our certified enrollment are all resident students and all students open enrolled out. Our served population is up as well. We're actually up 22 served students this year. So there are 22 additional bodies in seats this year that weren't here last year. And we know that school funding is tied to student population. 22 new students for Janesville is a big increase. Our solvency ratio is one of the healthiest in the state. And our solvency ratio simply is the unreserved, undesignated funds that we have. The state average is about 15.3%. So a very healthy solvency ratio. We have a very healthy unspent authorized budget, over 40%. The state average is 16%. The state wants us between 5 and 15%. So we have dollars. We have resources available to us. A question I also got is, you're going to have to pay for maintenance, and you're going to have to pay for air conditioning. You're going to have to pay for all the utilities associated with this project. And we as a district are in a financial spot to absorb those costs quite easily. Again, we are one of the most financially healthy districts in the state. For more information, you can visit our website at www.janesville.k12.ia.us. On the top right, there is a link for the building project. There's an FAQs, there's pictures, and both of these videos will be posted in that location. You can also visit Janesville's Facebook page for additional information and posts regarding the project. Now I'm going to turn it over to Rob from Modern Design, and he is going to talk in more depth about the details of this project. Rob?
Hello, my name is Rob Stenson, and I'm with Modern Design Architects, and I have been asked to work through the project and kind of describe what this project scope is and what our role is in this project. One of our criteria that we were looking at that was brought to our attention is obviously the classroom additions, the ADA accessibility in those classroom additions, and also a competition gym, which would expand their capacity of holding events and everything else that goes on in the building. What we looked at when we looked at the overall plan was there was also one other criteria that they were looking at, and that was entry into the school and how they get access to the school. So when we looked at the project, we kept that in mind of what we were doing. The project is divided into basically two phases, and one of those phases or projects is actually in two components. The first component is adding 2 classrooms that would be on the east side of the building, and those 2 classrooms would have access into the elementary core. They would not take away any of the playground area and anything else, but any of the equipment that needs to be relocated would be relocated to the top side, and that's being handled in a funding project with the school district itself. The other portion of the classroom addition would be creating a corridor link and an entry point that would allow you to create a classroom and a multi-purpose area into that lower level, but that then does give you ADA access back to the cafeteria and gives you access back up as far as any students that needs that accessibility. You still have the link to come up the stairs, you still have the entry point coming into the school. That is demonstrated in this rendering here of the entry point and the additional classrooms that are being added. The second phase of this, or project, is going to be the gymnasium and almost a multi-purpose area, because with that air conditioning component, that does give you an assembly space in the building to be able to take the entire school to and have the ability to go there. It's an offset gym design, which means there's more seating on the home side than there is visitor, which again allows you to set up for assemblies and to be able to have all the students on one side of the gym. The other component of this project was the link coming into the facility, the entry point, which again is demonstrated in this rendering, where you can see the entry point. It brings it forward into the parking area. It also has a link corridor, which gets you to the classrooms, gets you to the weight training areas and the shop areas, and also adds additional locker room spaces that are going to be on the west side of the building. Parking area that we have taken over right here is going to be recreated up in here, and you'll see that on an additional rendering of what we're trying to create. When you look at the project, one of the goals was the original gymnasium had competition problems because new rules for safety, how we move public, how we get spectators through the gymnasium. We want to create a regulation floor for volleyball, basketball, but also on the back line for for safety of athletes, we have the ability, when they go to the basket or they have the back end line, that there's room there. But we also have room on the sidelines for the public to come through. This will be more of a stadium-style seating area for the athletes. So instead of sitting on the front side of the bleachers, they actually have chairs and you walk behind them. Again, it's better flow, it's more safety to the players as activities are going on for people leaving and entering the gym. The other criteria, and you can kind of see it in the massing and the rendering, is the ability to raise the building now for volleyball. That gives you your height that you need in order to have competition volleyball in there. So the new gym meets all the standards for the Iowa Athletic Associations for volleyball, basketball, and any other sports that will go on in there. The big key is the air conditioning in the facility. It will give you an ability to have a space on those warmer days that you can bring elementary, bring assemblies to, and be able to handle that during the spring and the fall when we get these odd days that come through. When we look at the entry points of the building, the idea is to bring all the traffic to the back, to the north side of the building. And this new entry into the gymnasium and the link to it takes advantage of the concession area and the kitchen area and the common space that already exists. And this common space then, with the entry coming in, allows us to use the multi-gym spaces and service both of the areas. So the new project doesn't have to recreate all of the elements that are already existing in this area. The other thing is the common area and everything else. We do have general space and we have extra space through this area. So when you do have youth tournaments and anything going on for volleyball, wrestling, and basketball, where you have a lot of people to the school, when you have people that you have to spread people off out of the floor in teams in different areas, we have created that, and the gym space allows you to have a larger crowd, which is a different type of crowd than you have when you have an activity base on a Friday night or for a basketball or volleyball game. So we have considered that in the design of what we are doing for those type of activities in the space. As you look at the renderings to the interior of the space, you can kind of see the volume that we're talking about for the size for the volleyball. And you can kind of see the idea of how much space is between end lines and sidelines, so the traffic flow as spectators come in and out of it when there's competition going on. You can also again see at this rendering the entry point into the ADA area, into the additional classrooms, and also the classrooms to the front of the space. As you look at the overall plan of what we're doing, it does allow for future expansion when you look at this idea of where do we go from here as this district keeps growing, because that's the intent of the master planning. The idea still is that we have room here for the high school to actually continue to grow. These buildings get relocated and then you can come back in, and then as they take over green space, there's also plans to possibly look at some other ways of handling some of the athletic fields. But the idea is that you can still add on in the school here, rework here, and still have room to add on. We're not locked into where do we go from here with high school expansion if we need it in the future. That's pretty quick of what we're talking about and how the project goes together. If there's any questions, obviously, you can direct them to the school district and we can answer them also.
The third component of the project, of the town hall meeting, is how this is going to be paid for. And as was explained earlier, the only option that we have is a general obligation school bond. The school board has set a limit of $2.70 per thousand, which for us generates about $5.395 million in revenue. A general obligation bond is a bond that's paid off over 20 years by the local property tax owner. On a $100,000 home, the annual tax burden is going to be about $149.40. This is subject to change only when the rollback number or the rollback percentage changes, which is set by the counties, and if the total assessed valuation of the community goes up. So if our community property is worth more year after year, the potential burden would go down. It would be easy to see a situation where our community gets bigger and the property tax burden would decrease slightly. Again, the general obligation bond is paid back over 20 years, so this would be a $2.70 per thousand ask every year until 2036. So please refer to the charts that are on the screen. It'll give you a better understanding of how both your residential and ag land will be taxed, but you can also visit our website to see this in a little clearer graph. For more information, you can visit our website at www.janesville.k12.ia.us. On the top right, there is a link for the building project. There's an FAQs, there's pictures, and both of these videos will be posted in that location. You can also visit Janesville's Facebook page for additional information and posts regarding the project.